There are many reasons why you might want to burn less gasoline. Maybe you actually care about the environment. Maybe you care about energy independence, or maybe you just want to spend less money getting around. Whatever the reason, hybrids and plug-in hybrids are one of the best ways to get there. Today we'll take a look at this super efficient, sensibly sized, gas-sipping plug-in hybrid, the Kia Niro PHEV. We'll talk about how it drives, range, efficiency, safety, things we like, things we don't like, and if you should buy one. So before we talk about all the important things like efficiency, safety, and range and that kind of thing, let's talk about this exterior design. One of the things that I love about the Niro is that it's sensibly sized, but it still has a lot of interior space. With the trend of larger and larger SUVs hitting the market, the Niro is a breath of fresh air. And whether you like this design or not probably depends a lot on what you make of this aero blade right back here on the C-pillar. Now this may look like just some sort of weird design thing, but it actually serves a function. Air goes right through here and comes out the back, and it helps with the aerodynamics of this vehicle. Now if you don't want to highlight this piece of aerodynamic wizardry right back there, you can get this in the body color of the car. This black right here is an option. I really appreciate the squared off shape of this car. It really maximizes passenger space. But yeah, in general, it's just a really kind of adorable looking car. I dig it. Right here is where you plug it in, and right back there is where you put your fuel on the same side. That's pretty convenient. I do like the fact that the charging port is towards the front. It means that you don't have to back into some charging spaces. And hallelujah, I finally got a press car sent to me that wasn't white, gray, or silver, an actual color. There's just so many grayscale cars nowadays. I'm so sick of it. All right, let's check out the interior. Okay, inside the Niro plug-in hybrid, let's talk about comfort. These seats are decently comfortable. They're a little bit hard, a little bit narrow, but I have a ton of headroom and a ton of legroom. I'm 6'3", and I really have no problem fitting in here whatsoever. And in some cars, my knees hit up against the center console. That's really not a problem here. Now, when it comes to the materials and the design, it looks pretty nice in here. You know, this is not a luxury car, but everything looks really well built. I really like this angled area on the door where the window switches are and the mirror controls are. Ergonomics in here are really good. Just my main complaint about the design is the abundance of gloss black plastic kind of on the doors and down here, and it just gets grungy and grimy. I prefer they use literally anything else. It's got a 10.3-inch digital instrument cluster and a matching infotainment screen. The graphics look nice, and Kia's infotainment system, like I've mentioned in the past, is easy to use. Graphics look good, and it's not too distracting. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard, but unfortunately you need a wire to make it function. Down here you got a wireless car charger, USB-A for your infotainment, USB-C for charging, two relatively small cup holders, but you can open and close these little trap doors here to fit larger containers. Also can store some kids' toys there. Pretty small center console. Door pockets are pretty small. Does have a decent sunroof, but in general, everything makes sense. Everything is laid out really well. I love that I can fit really well in here, even though it's not a gigantic car. But let's talk about the one thing that I really just kind of hate. It's the climate control system down here. I know some people don't have a problem with this. If you're sort of a set and forget it kind of person, you don't really want to access the climate functions that frequently, this may work for you. But basically you have this toggle down here that switches between your infotainment controls and your climate controls. So just press this button right here to toggle between them. And after a little bit, it'll time out and it will go back to your navigation controls. The one thing I do like about this is that you have two knobs for temperature, because this is a dual zone system, and not all of the climate controls go away. You do have these 4 buttons over here to set the auto, set the defrost, the recirculate. But when it toggles back to those infotainment controls, the knobs become volume and tune, which is kind of annoying. So for me personally, this is a very distracting system. You have to look at it. You have to take your eyes off the road to operate it, because you can't operate it by feel. You have to look to find where that toggle is, and then you can change your controls. And also you have to determine what state the screen is in before you can use it. I will give Kia some credit though. This 3-level auto button right here does help out a lot. So you don't need to get into that climate control screen as much as you might think. Let's check out the back seat. So in the back, you've got 2.4 inches more legroom than the previous Niro, and you have a lot more headroom than something like a Prius. Child seat fits really well, but you'll have to move that front seat forward if you have a large rear-facing seat. You got 2 USB-C ports in the rear. There's also vents, which is nice. And in this top trim, you got heated seats for the outboard rear passengers. In terms of cargo area, it's 19.4 cubic feet of space with those rear seats up. It's actually a bit smaller than the Niro Hybrid and the Niro EV. With the seats folded down, you get 54.6 cubic feet, which again is a little bit smaller than the Niro siblings. So this car does sit a little bit higher than your average sedan or hatchback, which is a plus for easy entry and really great visibility. Visibility out the front is excellent. It's very easy to determine where the front of the vehicle is. Visibility out the sides is really good. And the view out the back is not bad either. And that cannot be said for a lot of the newer, larger SUVs that are being sold today, where you can barely tell where the front of your vehicle is. And thankfully, the Niro plug-in hybrid also comes with a good suite of safety tech standard, alerting you of cars, objects, and people that are in your blind spots. Everything works really well here. It's got collision avoidance, auto braking, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, rear parking sensors, and as options, you can get highway driving assist, which is basically really aggressive lane centering. Kia and Hyundai's safety systems work really well and will undoubtedly help avoid collisions. Okay, so let's start off with the important stuff, things like efficiency, range, and charging. This Niro PHEV is estimated to get 33 miles of EV range, which is pretty decent. And of course, the main reason why you're probably interested in this Niro plug-in hybrid is because you want to use less fuel. And with this, you can definitely do that. It's estimated to get 48 miles per gallon in hybrid mode and 108 miles per gallon equivalent when you're in EV mode. And that will save you over $5,000 over the course of 5 years compared to the average new car sold today. If you went with a Niro EV, it would save you $6,500. And if you went with the Niro hybrid, it would save you $4,500. All pretty good options for using less fuel, or no fuel in the case of the EV. And if you own a plug-in hybrid, I'm hoping that you plug it in at least at home and hopefully also at work, and that can reduce your fuel expenses even further. Throughout this entire week, most of the time that I've been driving this car, it's been in EV mode. I've barely used any gasoline. It's awesome. If you want to figure out how much you're paying per mile, obviously you do need to factor in your cost of electricity, but generally speaking, this is going to be a lot cheaper to own than a gas car over its lifetime, a lot cheaper. Now when it comes to charging, it can get to full in just under 3 hours on a level 2 charger. If you just have a 120 volt outlet in your garage, that can get charged up in about 8 hours, which is pretty decent because most of the time you're just going to let it sit overnight to charge up. One thing you really should consider are your actual driving habits. The average American drives just 37 miles per day, and most trips, over 50% of all trips, are under 5 miles each. So if your situation is anything like that average American, driving a plug-in hybrid could really save you a lot of fuel. You might be able to go a really long time without using a drop of gasoline. So what we have under the hood is a 1.6 liter inline 4-cylinder, and that's paired with an electric motor. It makes a total of 180 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, which is decent for this kind of small car. It's got an 11.1 kilowatt hour battery, and that's located in the rear. That power is routed through a dual clutch 6-speed transmission, and it's pretty smooth actually. But keep in mind, there is no all-wheel drive option for any Niro. In general, it's very smooth driving when it's transitioning from EV to gas. They did a really good job there. Now, if you care about things like 0 to 60 times, this can get to 60 miles per hour in about 7.5 seconds, which is decent. You can have no problems getting up to speed on the freeway. I know some auto journalists will cry about how slow this thing is. That's just because I think the bar has been moved in terms of acceleration with new cars. Now everybody's expecting their family vehicle to have the acceleration of a Corvette or a Tesla. It's kind of unnecessary. This is perfectly fine. In terms of acceleration, if you are in EV mode and you step on the throttle all the way, it will engage the gas motor to give you a little bit of extra juice. And there are 2 drive modes, Eco and Sport, though I don't really think you need a Sport mode in this car. It's not really that quick. It doesn't really need to be quick. I just kind of leave it in Eco all the time. The ride is really smooth. It's relatively quiet in here. Not a lot of wind noise or road noise. And overall, when driving this car, the size just sort of feels right. There's a good amount of interior space, and the smaller exterior dimensions make it really easy to drive. And if your driving habits are mainly around town, the Niro plug-in hybrid can certainly help you minimize your carbon footprint and spend a lot less money on fuel. Okay, let's talk price. I actually have to get the Monroney because I don't know how much this thing costs. Let's see, how much does this one go for? Yeesh, $41,635. That's kind of getting up there. Thankfully, it doesn't start that high. You can get the EX for a lot less than that. Now, the plug-in hybrid EX trim starts at $35,615, and that's including the destination charge. This SX Touring starts at $41,365. Now, this one at $42 does come with some options. That C-pillar trim is almost $200. I don't know if I'd pay for that. Cold weather package, that's $500. And the floor mat's $155. So yeah, if it were me, I'd probably go with the SX. I don't really need all of the fancy features. And that one's a little bit more reasonably priced in my opinion. You could also consider the Niro EV. It's got 253 miles of all all EV range. It's a lot more expensive, about 6 grand more, slightly more cargo space, but you're not using gasoline at all, which is awesome. You could consider the new Prius Prime. It's got more EV only range, but it does have really compromised rear headroom. Or you could consider something larger like the RAV4 Prime or the Ford Escape plug-in, and those have a much more expensive starting price. They're quite a bit larger, less efficient, but they do have slightly more EV driving range than this Niro. So what do you think of the Niro plug-in hybrid? My main gripe is that I hate the climate controls, but there is so much good here that I might be willing to overlook that. I appreciate its excellent efficiency. I like that it's easy to drive, easy to see out of, and has very well implemented safety features. There's a good amount of passenger space, yet it doesn't feel like a ginormous car. The Kia Niro PHEV is totally worth considering if you want to reduce the use of gasoline in your life. All right, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to help support the channel, please buy a Hello Road t-shirt. I hope you're well. See you soon.